Hey everybody, Doc here. Just wanted to jump back on and, of course we've talked a little bit about bird flu before, and I put a little video out just kind of saying what we knew at that time and just things to be concerned about. Some people have been asking for a little bit of an update, especially with some of the media stories that have been out there and concern for a potentially new variant of bird flu, the highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1 that has been going around and affecting birds and other mammals, cattle, cats, and potentially some other mammals. We don't really know yet. There's still a lot of testing going on. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is kind of what we know and what we don't know. And that's really important because there is still a lot of things we don't know. While this has been going on for a period of time, research takes time, and while we all would love to have those instant answers these days, it's just not the case when you're really investigating these types of things. So try to keep that in mind as we go through all of this. Also, as I say at all of these videos, nothing I'm going to talk about here is meant to diagnose or treat any specific issue in your particular cat or animal. Only your veterinarian can do that. So if you do have concerns about any of your pets or farm animals or anything like that, you need to talk to your local veterinarian about it. Nothing I'm saying here is really meant to be other than just general information for you guys to be aware of. So first off, just a couple of areas that I've gotten information from, and I think that you guys can get information too. One of them is what's known as the Worms and Germs blog. It is a wonderful resource for anything infectious disease or zoonotic disease wise, and it's put together in a very, very easy to understand way, especially for the general public. So you just can search Worms and Germs blog, any search engine, and it'll take you right to it. It's really a great resource, so you certainly can check them out. Another place to look for information is any of your local state VMA websites will have some great information, especially depending on what state you're in. We'll give you a lot more information as far as what's going on in bird flu numbers, both in birds and potentially any other animals. Your state Department of Agriculture websites are a great resource for that as well. The American Veterinary Medical Association is another great resource for it. You certainly can get some information there. And finally, a lot of the shelter medicine programs that are out there at various colleges of veterinary medicine. University of Wisconsin-Madison really has kind of taken the lead, their shelter program on this, but they collaborate with a whole bunch of other shelter medicine programs around the country, and they are a great wealth of information. And for those of us that work in the shelter realm or volunteer in the shelter realm or do trap, neuter, return, cat rescue work, anything like that, if you go to their website, they have a really great one-pager document that kind of goes over a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about, and it's constantly being updated. So it's got the most up-to-date and accurate information that will help anybody who works in those environments know what to do, what not to do, all of that stuff. So that's some great places to really get some really accurate information. I know some people probably have read the New York Times article or saw it posted where there was concerns about a report that was going to be published or was briefly published in the CDC's morbidity and mortality weekly newsletter that went out, and then sort of was taken aback where there was some evidence, at least, of potential spread from human to cat of this new variant of H5N1 bird flu, potentially cat to cat, and some other information, and then it was quickly taken back down. Nobody really knows why it was taken down, so we're not really going to jump to any kind of conclusions here. We don't know if it was just potentially because the information wasn't 100% accurate. Maybe some new information came out. Maybe they were still compiling research and info, and this accidentally got published when it shouldn't have been. We really don't know. So if we do get some answers on that, we will certainly let you guys know as soon as we do, but that's important to remember. But the crux of this really is about, okay, what are we dealing with? What do you as a pet owner potentially have to be worried about? If you work with feral cats or take care of feral cat colonies, what do you have to worry about? Are there other species that are concerned? All of that stuff. So what, again, we are dealing with is what is known as highly pathogenic avian influenza. And it's something that we first went through, especially in the country. We had a wave of it go through back in 2021, 2022 time frame, and where it decimated a lot of poultry flocks, especially mass-produced or mass housing of chickens and other birds that were used for meat and eggs and all that stuff. It caused a lot of those birds to have to be euthanized in order to prevent spread and uncomfortable deaths for the birds, basically, because it is not a fun disease for anybody to have. And then it kind of went away a little bit, and now we're seeing kind of a resurgence. And as we said in the other video, all of a sudden now we've noticed that at least the one variant jumped from birds, and apparently it was affecting cows. and they were getting sick. They weren't dying, they were getting pretty sick, and then they were recovering. But what they did notice also was that the cats that were on these dairy farms were dying as well. And when they started testing these cats, they realized, oh wow, these cats are dying of bird flu. And that was a really kind of light bulb moment to say, we've got something we need to be a little bit concerned about here, because this is now a flu virus that has jumped multiple species and potentially looks like it could be transmitted from one species to another. We're not 100% sure on that yet. I think some research is going to be coming out on that shortly. So the initial strain that they were dealing with was what was known as the A3 strain. And this was the one that we were, initially concerned about and seeing in cattle and birds, and it came from Europe. There was a cat that was died from bird flu infection in Minnesota, was one of the cases, and it was genotyped to this A3 variant. Now what we're seeing, and what's a little more concerning, is we are seeing a new variant that is known as D1.1. Don't worry so much about all of this stuff. It's just really more has to do with genetic typing of the virus and all of those. But this did cause the death of a cat in California, and probably is the cause of deaths for other cats that are infected with this. It is, from the virologists that study this, a much more aggressive and mutative virus than the A5 or A3 strain was. And basically that means it could be a lot more aggressive in its symptoms. It could potentially mutate further to allow for easier transmission among species. We don't know. I don't say that to try to panic people, and I know some people are going to get panicked about that, but we just try to put the information out there as we get it, and at least accurate information. So it's just something to be aware of. We are not, and I repeat, we are not seeing swaths of cats dying of this, or even right now showing signs of infection with it. But the ones that are infected, which is a low number, are showing very serious disease and unfortunately showing a fairly high rate of succumbing to these infections. And we're working on trying to find treatment protocols and things like that. As we learn more, we'll probably be able to save more. But it is something to be aware of. Now, this D1+1 variant, again, is also circulating in the bird population, and that is where the crux of the source of infection is in the bird population. So migratory birds, waterfowl especially, scavenging birds sometimes, sometimes your pet birds like your parrots, your parakeets, things like that, but not quite as much in that. And of course, in the large-scale poultry production facilities that house thousands of birds for meat or for egg production, things of that nature. And it was the cause of one human death in Louisiana, the D1+1 variant, and this was a elderly man who had come into contact with dead or diseased birds. We have not really seen a lot of other cases, I think, that have been confirmed in humans, with the exception of one, which was somebody who got very sick but then recovered. I know the testing process and surveillance testing is going on. So we do expect to see more people become potentially infected with this, especially ones that are around birds a lot, are around dairy cows a lot, in those types of environments. Now, how serious that infection gets, we're not really sure. But that's more on the human side, again, than the animal side, which is what I'm talking about. So when we talk about concern for cats, which I think is what everybody's mostly concerned about, is, well, what do I look for? What am I concerned about? And what basically we are seeing as far as cats that are coming down with this and the infections they're getting is they're coming down with very, very severe upper respiratory infections. So sometimes progressing to pneumonia, maybe some difficulty breathing, lot of colored, copious, mucousy type discharge coming from the nose and potentially the eyes, really feeling blah, not wanting to eat or drink, just really, really severe cold signs. And usually that is accompanied by some neurologic signs. So cats that are having a little bit of difficulty standing on their feet, cats that are maybe circling or acting differently behavior-wise, vocalizing, all of those things. Cats that kind of show those signs are something that definitely your veterinarian needs to be aware of. So if you see any of those signs in your cat, or cats that are on your property or potentially in your barns, things like that, you definitely want to let a veterinarian know so that we can, potentially look at it, potentially catch it, and test it if need be, and treat it, hopefully, if we certainly can try to treat it. That's certainly something to be aware of. Now, again, this virus the variant does also seem to affect cows. To my knowledge, we were seeing some of the same signs that we were seeing with the other variant. Cows that just drop some milk production, appear to be suffering from some respiratory type issues, going off their feed for a little bit. I don't believe that the mortality is as high in cows. It seems like they recover. Don't 100% quote me on that, especially with the new variant. But as I said before, in cats, this is highly lethal right now, and we are seeing very high mortality rates in cats that come down with this virus. There are some that we think we've pulled through, but we're dealing right now actually with a very low number of cats that have actually tested positive. Out of the millions and millions and millions and millions of cats that are out there in the country, 85 or so far is what has tested positive. So just keep that in mind. Again, be vigilant, but don't be panicked about it. So those are kind of some of the things that, we look for as far as symptoms. So if you are seeing anything like that in any cats that you come across, you definitely, like, as I said, want to let a veterinarian know. Now, what kind of precautions should you be taking to try to prevent your cat from getting this? Well, we do know that cats are usually exposed through diseased birds. So this happens through a multitude of processes, and it's not just thinking about finding a dead bird outside that your cat tries to eat or plays with or kills and then, brings to you or something like that. The biggest sources of contamination that we worry about, or sources of contagion and spread, are unprocessed bird meat. So people that feed raw diets to their cats, that should be avoided. Any kind of unpasteurized milk, as we said, this is something that noted eventually, spreading from cows to cats. So you really shouldn't get any raw or unpasteurized milk. Again, should also not be allowed to get around any kind of dead birds or anything like that. Those are the three main things that you want to be aware of to prevent, the potential exposure of your cat to this infection. And that's really important, especially if you have cats that are indoor-outdoor cats. You maybe want to watch them a little bit more closely. I realize that can be hard, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. And if you are feeding them raw diets, potentially try to get away from that to more cooked diets, because cooking and pasteurization will kill this off and they will not be exposed. But those are the main signs that we're seeing. Can cats give this new variant between themselves? I think the jury is out on that right now. There is some evidence that potentially in very close quarters that there could be cat-to-cat transmission, but I do not believe scientifically they have proven that outside of an experimental setting. So yes, it is a concern. Again, something to watch and to make sure it doesn't get any worse. So just keep your eyes open for more information potentially coming out on that. Can it go from your cat to you? Right now, we, again, are not sure, but we don't believe that cats are a major source of contagion and spread at this point. Again, those that read that New York Times article, there was some issue of, did the person who was infected with it give it to their cats, or did the cat get it some other way, or vice versa? Since we don't know exactly what kind of research and testing was done in that specific case, because that information was pulled back, we really don't know the answer to that. But right now, again, doesn't appear to be a major concern. But you, of course, do want to, just, again, be vigilant and monitor your cats for any signs of illness and let your veterinarian know if you're seeing any signs of that. The final thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is those of us that work kind of in the feral cat realm. And I know that over the winter, at least up here in the north where we've actually finally had a winter, a lot of the TNR programs probably were not as active because of the cold temperatures and the snow and the storms. But now with the spring coming around, they're going to start ramping up again. And it's something to be aware of for those of us that do work in the feral cat realm and colony caretaker. So there's some things you can do to potentially help prevent any possible exposure of yourself to a cat that might be infected with bird flu. Because again, we don't know if and how easily this virus will transfer potentially from cats to humans. So first off, if you do notice any cats that are coming into your TNR programs with any kind of respiratory signs or neurologic signs, you definitely want to keep those cats totally separate somewhere else. Let the veterinarian that is doing the surgeries know about that, and they will guide you as far as what the best practices are. If you are potentially going to be even moving them in traps or anything like that, probably definitely want to wear gloves, want to wear an N95 mask, just to kind of protect yourselves. If they are really kind of sneezing and have a bunch of discharge and things like that, you might even want to consider like a face shield or something like that to protect your eyes and other mucous membranes, because the virus can penetrate into the body that way. So those are kind of some of the precautions you want to take. And there are some others on that Shelter Medicine website who put out a great one-pager on this, and we'll we'll put the link up for that. That is a constantly evolving document that gives a lot more information about what to do here. If you are feeding colony cats, you probably want to practice some feeding practices that make sure that other animals are not coming by to scavenge off the cat's food. So ideally trying to feed them in short periods and then taking the food away if you can to prevent other scavengers from coming in and potentially being a source of infection. Don't feed them anywhere near standing water, such as ponds or lakes or things like that, because obviously you'll get a lot more waterfowl in those areas. That can potentially be a source of infection for your cats. And obviously just, keep an eye out. If you notice any cats that are showing some respiratory neurologic signs, certainly want to let a veterinarian know, preferably the one that takes care of feral cats, or the state vet, they may want to know as well to potentially try to trap and test that cat to see if there is any kind of spread. So that's kind of where we are. Some people will say, is there a vaccine on the, or ask, is there a vaccine out there? Not yet, and there probably won't be. Especially if we're seeing multiple variants. Flu vaccines, as they know in people, are change every year almost. You almost never really see them come out for animals. We did see it come out for dogs a couple of years ago because that seemed like a more stable variant. But even there's some question as to if those work as well as they did initially. Speaking of dogs, some people are going to be asking, well, do dogs seem to get infected? Right now, we do not believe so. I'm not aware of any cases or even suspect cases that were going on in dogs. So it's not anything to worry about in our canine friends right now. But again, if you do notice your dog having any severe respiratory signs, you always just want to have your vet check them anyway, because there certainly are some other nasty bugs that dogs can get that can cause some severe respiratory and pneumonia issues as well. So that kind of hopefully updates people a little bit. Again, don't panic. Be aware. Be able to protect yourselves, which I think is kind of the overarching theme that a lot of people that are studying this are kind of putting out right now. Take the proper precautions if you are going to be working around birds. If you are going to be helping deal with an area of sick birds or getting rid of a large area of dead birds, definitely want to make sure you protect yourself and get the right personal protective equipment, face shields, masks, gloves, gowns, all of that stuff to prevent possible transmission to yourself. If you do work on dairy farms where all of a sudden you're seeing a lot of your cows get sick, you definitely want to talk to your veterinarian about the possibility of it being influenza and what personal protective options you have for yourself in those situations, because we don't want to see you guys getting sick. And a lot of the human cases that we see in these right now are cases of humans that are exposed to large amounts of virus. So that work in poultry barns, that work in dairy facilities or other cow facilities, that work potentially in large-scale cat operations, although we don't know for sure if cats can actually transmit it to humans. But anywhere that is a high virus load from a lot of sick animals, there's going to be the risk of more illness happening to people that are around that. So, definitely keep all that stuff in mind. Talk to your doctors, human doctors as well, about what you can do to help protect yourself. That's all really good information. So just remember to kind of stay vigilant on this. Again, not anything to panic about. If you work a lot with cats, you do want to be aware of it, and you want to be able to try to jump on things quick and just have it in the back of your head. So if you do start to see potentially some signs of cats that are possibly affected, you can take the proper precautions for yourself, your staff if you're working in some sort of rescue or TNR or any kind of surgical facility, things like that, because we want to be able to just keep on top of this. The more information we can get from everybody, the quicker we can have this thing figured out, and kind of the better and most up-to-date information we have. So I know it jumped around a little bit there. I do apologize. There's a lot of moving parts to this. But if you do have any questions that I did not answer that really pop out or stand out in your mind, please drop them in the comments. Send me an email personally. I will try to get those answers to you. You can see my email right here. Or drop them in the comments. I will try to answer them as quickly as I possibly can. And if I can't find them, I'll try to find somebody who does have the answer. Again, also, you definitely want to check out some of those websites. Worms and Germs blog, the University of Madison, Wisconsin Veterinary Shelter Medicine Program. If you just Google that, it'll take you to their first page and you'll see that document and all the information right there. avma.org has some great information on it, and any of your local state veterinary medical associations or departments of agriculture will have this too. Because you have to remember, bird flu, yes, I'm talking more about cats and the transmission to humans and cows and stuff. It is a major issue when it comes to affecting the price of eggs, price of meat, all of that stuff, because it is a major economic catastrophe in some areas for these farmers that this is all they do, and they lose their entire flocks because of this. So trust me, the Department of Agriculture are very much on top of it, and they are doing everything they can to try to increase biosecurity and prevent spread to further farms. So again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I will hopefully be back on soon with more information as we get it, but just stay vigilant, don't panic, and hopefully everybody will stay nice and happy and healthy and warm once the spring comes around. Take care, folks.